Hey folks, welcome to this second in a series of Worldographer 2025 101 videos. In the past we've done some Worldographer 101 videos for the prior version of Worldographer. With this big major update to Worldographer 2025, we're revisiting that concept, doing them as a series of videos because they end up getting quite long. The prior video was just about terrain, the terrain drawer here, as well as the setup screen, which you would go to File and select New World Kingdom Map to go ahead and start a new map. So we went over just those two and got into a little bit of features, and it ran for 40 minutes before we did some editing and got it down to about 35 minutes, but still it was quite long. So this time we're just going to do the features drawer coming up. Worldographer does have a couple of different icon sets built into the tool. One is this Mystara 80s D&D style set. The other one is this, what we call the isometric icon set. It's really Civilization, the computer game, probably 2, 3, but that was the look that we were going for. That these two sets are built into the tool, as well as some additional icons that will let you make kind of like a first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons icon set as well, which takes these icons for the most part and adds some line art icons as well, where you kind of swap out the mountains and stuff that you use. And we'll do another video about that. Like I said, want to keep these somewhat more bite size. Felt like 30 plus minutes was too long, so hopefully we can get this a little bit shorter. So in the theme of that, instead of doing feature shapes and labels like I was planning to do previously, we're going to do just features and see where that gets us to. Oh, I should point out we also got into some layers stuff with the prior video because it relates to placing terrain on other layers. And we're going to get into a little bit of that here as well. So with that out of the way, features, we're going to do this for the most part in order on the drawer that you see here, or tabs. In Worldographer, previously we called these drawers. Now they're more tabs. It does allow us to have this nice functionality where you can scroll among all of the options of the different terrain types, or feature types in this case, and still have your other controls available to you, which was something that we couldn't do previously. So there's a bunch of small enhancements like that in Worldographer 2025 that really add up, and then there's also some really cool special features as well. If you want to filter what you're seeing here, you go up here and you can type in, say for example, city, and hit enter, and you're only going to see the icons that have city in the name. Another way to filter is to filter and change the type of icons. So for example, if I do want to go to those isometric style icons, we've got that here. Related to that, if these are too small to really see what they are, in 2025 you can now change those graphics and make them larger so you can see them more clearly. I'm going to switch back to classic because that's what these icons are. If I want to place an icon on the map, it's really just as simple as picking the icon, see it's highlighted there, and placing on the map where you want it to go. Say if I want this tower in this hex, it goes there. Now by default, it's going to be centered in the middle of the hex because that is largely what the Mystara icons were like. If you want to place it more freely where it can be placed at a specific point in a hex, you can. I'm just using my mouse wheel to scroll in there as I'm doing this, but I can check that place freely box, and then I can put it right there at the intersection of those hexes if I wanted to, or anywhere else I'd like. I'm going to turn that off though because we're going to show another feature of these checkboxes down here while I'm at it. If I pick something else here, so say I'm picking this encampment, we've got a checkbox for hiding the terrain icon so that when we do place it down, it will remove that particular hills icon behind there so it's a little bit more clear. Again, that's the way that the Mystara icons typically had worked in their maps. We also have this fill hex bottom checkbox here, which will fill in the bottom 1/3 of, or 1/4 of the hex. So if I wanted to put another encampment over here with that checked on, you see that it does fill in the bottom portion of that hex. Just to round out these checkboxes down here on the bottom, we also have a GM only functionality. So if I place one with GM only on, then if I turn off showing the GM only down here on the bottom side of the map, you can see that it would disappear. So this allows you to have kind of a player's version of the map. And GM only can apply to, there's checkboxes on terrain, features, shapes, and labels. So everything that you put on your map, you can make GM only. There's also a whole fog of war functionality, which we'll get into in another video as well. All right, so coming back up here to the controls, if we hit select and select a particular icon, which it's going to highlight when we hover over it, it's going to get a little bit darker when we do select it. And then all of these properties apply to the selected thing. And it will also apply to the next thing we place. So if we went back and clicked a particular icon, then we would inherit all those properties, which is nice if you want to color in the icons of a particular faction one color and another faction another color, then you can inherit that color by selecting them, for example. Let's look at the note functionality. So if I select one of these other, particularly like a city, but we do it for most of the icon types, if I hit select and I hit this F note button, that's going to pull up a note of details about that location, which is all just randomly generated bullet points. And you're free to totally edit this all around or to throw it out and start from scratch. You can regenerate the details so you can get a new list, or you can ignore it if you'd rather. Another cool thing on the note dialog is that you can have a file associated with it. So for that city, we can in Worldographer generate a city here and then save that file and then open up the note and change the file, which is just going to bring up a file chooser and associate that other file. And then thereafter we can hit open file once we click on the note and open that up as a new tab. You can also access notes by hitting add view edit note. So if I hit add view edit note, this is actually going to turn on all the notes that are on for all the features that have been added to the map. So we can pull up something else like this fort. We can click on this and see the details of this fort, for example, without having pre-selected that icon. So it works either way. Configure will pull up a dialog that will let us add new features if you've got the Pro version, or it'll let you also add in or customize these, change the icons, change a background color, that sort of thing. Randomness actually applies more so for the other icon set, so we'll swap over to the other icon set. And here, for example, I have a couple of different cities. And so if I turn on randomness, we have a medieval city A and medieval city B, and what it's going to do is it's going to, now I'm inheriting the label property, so we'll get into labels in a minute. Let me turn off the label that was on the city that we had last selected. But let me zoom in here as well, and we're going to resize this so it's not 75% of a hex. We're going to make it more like 50. Yeah, we're going to make it more like 50, and we're going to turn on place freely as well. And so if I check one, or if I place this here, because I have randomness on, there's a chance that it's going to find that medieval city B instead, which is what it did here. So it's kind of giving it a chance. It's less than half. It's probably about a quarter to a third that it will use one of those other things. So if we just place down a few of them, there you go. So you see, in this case, it got half. If you don't like it, though, if you don't want too many of them, then, of course, turn it off, and you can then only get the city type that you're picking. So that's what randomness will do. Let's go back to our other map, and then we're going to turn off the city filter here. And we deleting, so if I've selected an object on the map, so let me select one again. And if I want to delete it, I can just hit the trash button. You can also hit the delete key either way. We already went over this here. In details for this is your z-axis settings. Z-axis, you can move it up to the top, up one, down one, or all the way down the bottom. Doesn't really come in too useful for this type of map. You do see it used, particularly for this type of map here. We have some special functionality where, for example, all these mountains you can see by default are, you got one mountain or one small cluster of mountains that are centered in a particular hex. You can go into tools and make isometric mountains into features, and this is going to add even more mountains, especially in between them. It's basically going to cut off all the mountains. You're just going to have that base grayish texture there, and then it's going to smack down a whole bunch of extra mountains and adding in extras where the hexes meet up that are all mountains. So let's hit that, and you can see what it did there. So when you do that for this type, we're also going to, that functionality is also creating this mountains layer. So I can go into features and I can filter for mountain, or even just a part of the word mountain, and I can pick, say I want this mountain here, and I can set it to be on the mountains layer, and also turn on place freely. And the issue is that this z-axis stuff will fix is if I put this one down, you can see that one is on top. It's drawn on top of the others, and of course we probably don't want that. So I can select it and I can push it all the way down to the bottom with this functionality. Now we also do have another feature in the tool where if the layer has y-ordered in the name, then it's going to draw all the features on that layer from top to bottom of the screen. So that's another way to achieve this functionality. But sometimes you might, if you're making a battle mat and you've got tables and chairs and you stick the chairs on after the table, this functionality allows you to select that table and move it up to the top, or select a chair and move it down one or two, or whatever you need to do. So you can go up to the top, go down to the bottom, or go up one, or go down one. And in all cases here, it's looking at, for going to the top and bottom, it's going to move it up to the top or bottom of all the features on that layer. For moving up or down one, it's actually just going to look at the features that are on that layer and which ones overlap. And it's going to move it up one that is overlapping, or down one that's overlapping, depending on which button you press. And I will warn you that sometimes it might not seem like it's going up or down one, but there's some transparency in those images. So of course, this particular mountain here that we just added has a rectangular bounding box of that icon that is transparent. So it might not seem like it's moving up one, but it is, or down one, depending. Okay, so let's flip back to our other map type. Levels, this just allows you to control, is this particular feature viewable on one of these levels? Now we did talk about levels in our other video too, but just to make a quick example of it, we're going to go to continent. We're going to make it kind of small just so we can see it all in more detail here for video purposes. So we're going to do just 3 to 1. Let me zoom out. And so you can see that you've got this area, you got 3 hexes across. And Worldographer, I made this point in the prior video, but Worldographer 2025, one of the improvements is that you get much more organic results with this functionality, this map level functionality, where you've got a continent view of your world map and a kingdom view where it's just kind of giving you more detail of the entire map. But to get back to our main point, if I pull this off and say we want to put a pyramid down and we want to put it in these hills over here, and then I can go up to the world level and you can see we've got our pyramid there, but for some reason that pyramid isn't prominent enough. I don't want it to show up on the world level. Now I do have to be on a different level than the level I am turning it off. So I can't turn it off of the world level when I'm viewing the world level. That's probably something that I'll probably jot down as a reason to change there. I thought there was a good reason to do that. Now that I'm in hindsight, I've thought, why? So we might make it so that you can turn it off regardless. But at the moment, in version 1.04 of the beta, you can't. So if I've now turned that off here, I can go up to the world level and you can see that our icon has disappeared here. So of course the other checkboxes work in a similar way. Override the default scales, and let's select a different icon here. So if I pick this tower here, if for some reason I want to make it taller or whatever, I can set it to be 100. Now that's going to apply to both the width and the height. If I want it to only be the width, and if I want the height to be scaled differently, I can check this box, and then I can scale the height 120. Then it's going to make it even taller, and I can make it narrower there. Now, because of some transparency on the images and so forth, even though it's set to be 120 high, it's really just about the height of a hex right there. That's just because there's some transparency added around that image. Rotation, not going to be used too much on these types of maps, much more common in settlement maps and battle mat maps, but in case if you think of a reason for it, if you want to rotate your object a little bit, you can. We also have a new widget, which actually isn't out yet in 1.04. What you're seeing here is my development environment where there's been a couple of small changes made for 1.05. So once 1.05 comes out, you'll see this control here, which is just a way for you to quickly, with one click, set it to be rotated any 15-degree increment here. So if I wanted to do it 90 degrees, or if I wanted to do it 195 degrees, you can do it there. If you want 285, you can go there, or back to 0 up here at the top. So it's just a one-click way of doing it. In 1.04 and earlier of the beta, it's going to be a drop down here where you click a drop down, and then you have to select the amount, and that had drawbacks in that A, you had to click twice, and B, if it was already set, if this drop down was 90 degrees and you were switching to a different icon and the other icon was 0, but you wanted to make it 90 degrees, you had to click it twice. You had to set it to something else and set it to something again, or just use the spinner here. Now you can also type in a value here as well and just hit enter, and it will get you back to what you want. But if you wanted to get it back to 0, you can just click that again. Okay, so flipping, you can flip your icon vertically, you can flip your icon horizontally. Not a lot of use for this in this type of map, but definitely useful in battle maps and settlement maps. Override the color. So this is something I mentioned earlier in the video, where if you wanted to have one faction's icons in one color and another faction's icons in a different color, you can check the box, override the color, and then pick a color from the color picker here. And you can pick and make it maroon. You can also go into custom color, which is off the screen, but just below what you're seeing there are two things. Custom colors, there's a list of icon colors that are match up with the icon backgrounds of the default icons here, the mountains and the hills and everything. And so if you wanted to match the background color, you can do that. There's also a custom color button here, which brings up a way to pick any color you want in many different ways. So you can use that. You can also set the opacity of a color as well there. New in 2025 is this little medicine dropper. So if I wanted to match a color on the map, so for example, if for some reason I wanted to match the color of the icon part of this terrain, just the tree color there, I can just use that medicine dropper functionality there. And that's a new thing in 2025. So the 2025 update has a whole bunch of little things that really add up. I've mentioned a few already, as well as some bigger features as well, like that better child map functionality, the map level functionality, I should say, where it just has a better, more organic look to the expansion of having subhexes. Adding a ring around an object. So this is something that's most often used for sector and subsector maps of Traveler for cosmic outer space maps. Traveler has a thing where a yellow ring would mean something that a system is quarantined, or there's some other problem on the system. So you can have yellow, orange, and red rings with that system. In our case here for these maps, typically you wouldn't use it, but that certainly could apply to your world map here, where you could say, hey, this city is having an outbreak of some virus or something. It's quarantined. Nobody's allowed to go there. Okay, tags. So I'm going to select something else here just so I have something different to go and have a look at. With tags, we have this functionality where we can hide objects that have tags, and I can add a tag to a particular object. So I can say that this is a camp, for example, and then I can type into here camp, and that object is going to disappear. I can also do the same thing where I can turn off all the other objects, but only show them based on a tag as well with this other box over here. All right, so I think that covers everything here. Now we're going to move on to labels, this next area here. And so I'm going to pick another object again, just so we've got something different here. I'm going to turn off this camp thing there from that. But so I've got this label here for Marco, which is just a name of this particular city. Built into Worldographer are a number of language files, a lot of syllable lists to make up words that are similar to certain different languages. And so that's what the source of this name is. But if I wanted to change it, of course, I can change it and make it something like New Marco or whatever. You can have multiple lines, so if for some reason I can't fit in Marco because there's another label next to it or something, I can make it on a separate line if I wanted to. Distance controls how far up or down away from that icon the label will be, and it's a percentage of a hex. So if I do 100, it's going to go about 100% away from the default location around that hex. I can also base that position on a clock position, so I can switch it to being above or below. If I hit 12 here, then it's going to jump it above instead. And then I can also put in the distances as negatives if I'd like. Label styles. There are styles built into the program. City is one of them for your world kingdom maps. But if I wanted to, for some reason, change this to a different style, I can do that. But we'll keep it to city. You also have an option for no preset style. And then if I do no preset style, then it's going to pay attention to all of these other things instead. You've got the size, the font, you've got a color, an outline size, an outline color, bold and italic, and a background color. Okay, feature decorations. Feature decorations are something that people typically were using for the traveler maps, the sector, subsector maps that would add in little icons around your main icon. And they would signify things like that there's a military base here, there's a ship repair facility here. And so what you can do is you can just check the box either that there is a feature decoration in this row, and you pick your icon that you want. And so you can just highlight one of these and copy and paste it so that you can put it somewhere. And then so you can pick a location. So we want it at the 3 o'clock location. From that main icon, you can see that you've got that square right there. But we can also use it in these this set that might signify something about that city. Maybe that box means that there's a wizard's tower in there, or whatever the case may be, whatever works for you. You can also signify the strength of this thing, this city. Maybe the defense factor for it goes at the 12 o'clock position right up at the top. And maybe if white isn't good enough for you, you wanted to have something darker instead for contrast purposes, you can change the color there. And maybe the number of troops that it has stationed there. Maybe there's 100 troops stationed there, and that might be at the 6 o'clock position. So you can put that there and, of course, change the color as well. So if you want to use it to signify that sort of information, you can put these feature decorations on there. So I believe that covers everything about Worldographer 2025's features drawer. Thanks for your support on making the tool. We'll have another video in a few days on shapes, and then continue progressing through all of the different tabs of Worldographer so that you can be fully familiar with the tool. These videos, I think, are a great way to learn how it works, best practices, and some little known features as well. So hope the tool helps you make some great maps. Thanks a bunch for your support, and we'll have some links down below for related videos and where to download it and so forth. Thanks a bunch. Bye.